reading an ADHD magazine, someone with ADHD. So I am on I stopped at how to stop procrastinating was the segment that I was on page 69. So we offer an effective plan for pushing through when you feel stuck by Tracy Atsuka. Cecilia has degrees from 2 Ivy League schools, yet she struggled for months to accomplish one simple chore, moving the contents of a small storage space she had rented for years into her new home. I suggested she use what I call the plan, a step-by-step method that relies on these factors. Create an intention, inspiration, identity, and positive emotion around your tasks. To get something done, it helps to set an intention, the reason you want or need to get the task done. It is important that you personally, or is it important to you personally, or is it something that others want you to achieve? My mint was distracting me. Something that simple. Does the task align with your values, strengths, skills, passions, and purpose? If it doesn't, is there a way to reframe it so it does? Sometimes we do things other people want us to do rather than what we want to do. If we're not interested in a task, though, we won't follow through. While there will always be chores and work tasks we don't want to do, reframing them to be in service of our health, livelihood, or professional path can help us initiate and complete them. Start with something small you want to change and ask yourself what kind of person you want to be by doing so. Maybe you want to be a person who doesn't view social media first thing in the morning because it makes you anxious or because you feel behind the rest of the day. Create an identity around the person you want to be. Then reframe how you think about that habit with a positive intention that can help you to follow through. When you stick to your intention, it shows that you are someone who can make and keep small promises to yourself. To avoid being overwhelmed, create your own intention, trust your own intuition, and make decisions that serve you. Trust your own intuition that you know how to do things in a way that works best for you. Because so many of us were shamed in school, at work, or at home, we all overlook or ignore our intuition and listen to everyone else's advice on how to do things. This can lock us further in task paralysis because other people's way of doing things don't work for us. The key to avoid being overwhelmed is to find or create your own intention. Trust your own intuition and make decisions that serve you. Because we oftentimes don't do things the neurotypical way, we can believe that we lack any kind of plan to get things done. But I guarantee that you have a system to accomplish boring tasks, repetitive or obligatory tasks. It may be unconventional, but it's worked for you before. To identify your system, think about the last time you were able to accomplish something you didn't want to do. Maybe you were able to finally complete that arduous homework or file your taxes by getting a friend to come over and do their own work while you did yours. Or maybe you need a subtle distraction to get things done, like listening to music or having television on in the background to keep you company. No matter how you get it done, if it's worked for you before, apply these strategies even if they don't follow neurotypical rules. All-nighters ratchets up our stress hormone, cortisol, over time, increasing feelings of overwhelm while impairing physical and mental health. So I absolutely get my rest, or at least I try my hardest to, because when I am well rested, I can function. See what ADHD strengths you can use to make things easier. Many of us are so used to thinking about our deficiencies that we forget the many strengths we have as neurodivergents. We know, for example, that we can hyper-focus on what interests us, a huge asset when we want to get things done. Consider if there's a way to infuse a boring or obligatory task with something that interests you so that it triggers your hyper-focus. If you dread cleaning your kitchen but love to dance or listen to music, or both, dance to some inspiring music while you clean. Creativity is one of my signature ADHD strengths, so I use it to create new solutions. I'll regularly set timers and keep mental records to see if I can beat an old time in getting just about anything done, even putting groceries away. This sort of challenge keeps me going and makes even boring tasks fun. The problem with that is, let's say that I go to set the timer to do my dishes. What will happen is I will pick up my phone and not go to I will forget to go to the timer app, pick up another app, and then start using it, and then my dishes aren't done. So I have to be really careful about doing something else while doing something that needs to be done, because then I can stop focusing on what needs to be done and do the other thing. So break those tasks into smaller steps. Man, every single task for me is like I needed to sit down. To sit down is a task for me. This makes them much more doable and allows you to cross them off your to-do list, which generates the positive emotion and dopamine that can fuel you to continue. If you have a bigger task, like an important presentation or work project, divide it into micro tasks and assign days or weeks to get them done. In Cecilia's case, we applied the plan to make the mundane task of clearing out her storage space as simple and fun as possible. First, she set an intention and an identity. She wanted to do this for herself, to have all her stuff in one place, a nice orderly objective, rather than her previous belief that she had to do it, to not be so wasteful with money. Just to pause real quick so that you can see this adorable kitty. Yes, you're so cute. Oh my goodness. You're so adorable. Yes, you're so pretty. Okay. In the past, she had been towards that didn't take much time. She could organize a bathroom closet if she knew it would only take 15 minutes. So we agreed she would never spend more than 25 minutes at one time working in the space. Next, to break down the task into the smallest steps as possible. Okay. I got distracted. I asked her to take a notepad and inventory everything there. When she did, she realized she had built it up to be a much bigger chore than it actually was. Every day for a week, she packed up and moved out items from the space for just 25 minutes, which made her feel accomplished. During her 25-minute sessions, Cecilia played Frank Sinatra's Nice and Easy, a song about relaxing that made her laugh. After 10 months of procrastination and paying a needless fee, Cecilia cleared out her storage space within a week, proving that she could show up and keep a commitment to herself. Tracy Atsuka, certified ADHD coach, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now we're here when ADHD fluctuates. In the following Q&A, clinical psychologist Margaret Sibley, PhD, one of the preeminent thought leaders shedding light on ADHD today, discusses how symptoms and traits can vary with life stage, environment, and stress, and what you can do to handle the ebbs and flows. Do ADHD symptoms and traits always stay the same, or can they vary depending on life stage, environment, or stress? In the wide-ranging discussion here, clinical psychologist Margaret Sibley, PhD, a professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences at the University of Washington Seattle's Children's Hospital, talks about the fluctuations that are natural to ADHD and explains how to deal with the shifting sands. When she spoke to Pamela Weintraub, editor of Understanding ADHD, one area of focus was a subthreshold group of individuals with a presentation too mild to qualify for medical diagnosis. But with intermittent ADHD traits troublesome enough to cause challenges in their lives. Usually unacknowledged and unaccommodated at school and work, these folks would also benefit from support to help them manage the ups and downs. Many studies show that ADHD is genetic, but given the symptoms and traits can fluctuate as part of what we are seeing environmentally. In short, can the right environment override traits coded in the genes? I think of the environment as turning up or down the volume on the genetic risk. So if you're a person with high genetic risk, you may show symptoms of ADHD regardless of the environment you're in. If we maximize supportive factors and people help you find your niche, you may do the best you can, and you may even do very well. But even with support, you may still always really struggle across your life. However, if you're a person with genetic risk and you find yourself in a good fitting environment, you may not really experience problems, at least at certain periods of your life. These people can do well for years, but Big changes can throw them off. When something happens, whether it's something biologically or hormonally within a person, or out in the world with stressors, it can trigger exasperations for this group. What factors prevent diagnosis earlier in life? One protective factor that often is associated with later diagnosis of ADHD is high IQ and intelligence. For kids who are very charismatic or really good at sports, oftentimes the problem they might be experiencing are overshadowed by the special things about them. ADHD also gets missed in girls who are quieter and not as disruptive. Yes, sweetie. In childhood, a lot of times people will get referred for treatment in childhood because they're bothering someone else, not because they themselves are struggling. What if you know your child is at risk due to family ADHD, but they can seem fine for now? Can parents be forewarned and mitigate potential risks for those who could show symptoms or traits up the road? It's a privilege to be able to notice this in your kid because you've had personal experiences with it. Whether it's in yourself, in other family members, there are definitely a few things that are universally good to do, and that may be particularly important for these kids. First of all, they're vulnerable to problems with self-esteem over time, especially if they're not diagnosed. Because to know what you are not good at is all other people at things but not have an explanation for why is unsettling and can make you feel at peace with it. We're thinking about buffering against low self-esteem by helping kids develop competencies, things that they're good at. So they have evidence that they are good at things and that they are a person of value. And alongside that, not just competencies, but investing in children, giving your positive feedback to counteract negative feedback that they may be getting from other places. Your kid may need to hear more times than another person's kid when they're doing something right. You also want to help kids develop self-awareness. So yes, absolutely, implement positivity and be kind, be nice, be kind. A lively elementary school classroom might be so energizing it won't be likely to activate the teacher's sub-threshold ADHD traits. But stuck in a cubicle doing paperwork, she might find she has trouble with focus and mood. Okay. ADHDers are often terrific athletes driven by love of game and mastery of their skill or event. But even when just on break, they may find the open space of a ski slope more calming than a city crowd, especially if they can power down their cell phone. So this is the page we're on now. To understand what their strengths and weaknesses are, whatever those weaknesses, hit a critical level where they actually need medical attention or not. When you have self-awareness, you put yourself in a position to make good choices about surrounding yourself with people who will build you up, and also in situations that value your strengths where your weaknesses won't undermine you. In part, we are discussing the sub-threshold group of people who don't have ADHD, but do have ADHD traits that can be triggered depending upon circumstances. What happens to such people as they get older and life gets harder if the environment somehow derails them, if a parent gets sick, if they are forced to go to a new school, if a job change puts them under pressure? What risks do they face? Many in this group, along with their parents, were never aware of their vulnerability. But like those at high risk for ADHD, people without ADHD but with ADHD traits are also at risk for substance abuse. When it comes to underperformance at work and underperformance at school, relative to your abilities, you see that risk in these folks as well. So it's important to invest in helping them, even if they don't have a medical diagnosis. Once ADHD-like traits are triggered in someone from the sub-threshold group, what can we do to help them? Do they qualify for medication like people with the actual ADHD diagnosis? As providers, one of the tough challenges we face is how mild a person needs to be before you say ethically, I probably shouldn't give them medication. And it's hard to figure out where the cut point is as far as who's severe enough to warrant a diagnosis and medication and who's not. I think there's a lot of pressure on providers by regulatory bodies to prescribe responsibly and to watch out for people who may be seeking stimulant medications for non-therapeutic reasons. So for folks who are milder, there's a frustration they experience when they try to advocate for their difficulties with the primary care provider, and that person is a little gun shy about prescribing. It creates a friction that there's no clear answer to because at some point someone probably is too mild to get ADHD medication, and it's hard to decide what that point is. Q. I imagine many of these sub-threshold individuals are out there trying very hard to get an ADHD medication so they can function at higher levels at work and in their lives. If they can't get psychopharmaceuticals and they're unable to change jobs or move to Vermont, what do we have for them? Why do you need to move to Vermont, of all things? But okay. There's a contingency of people out there advocating that we may need to actively and deliberately manage distractions more now than we used to. Mastering those techniques and strategies doesn't mean you have to move to Vermont, but it might mean taking certain notifications off your phone at certain times of the day or giving yourself tech breaks over the weekend. And it's not just tech. There are some privileged people who have more flexibility than others. But I think if we're thinking about this in a stepwise approach, the first thing you want to try is to reorganize your lifestyle to the extent that you can and see how that goes for you. Try some of the coping strategies that help with organization and time management. If those strategies don't work, would a medicine be in order? If you're trying those things earnestly and you're not seeing results, that's when it might make sense to go in and talk to a doctor and let them fully assess you. Hopefully, you'll get someone with whom you can discuss the pros and cons for you personally of starting a medication and who can work out a treatment plan with you that isn't unilateral, just medication, but kind of holistic, including sleep, exercise, screen time, healthy relationships in your life, boundaries between work and personal life, all the pieces of the puzzle so that you maximize the efforts you're making. Q. There's a crush of technology and media these days that seems to impact even those of us without the biology of ADHD. It feels as if the overload of our culture, with all the digital immersion, with our 24/7 information society, and with hybrid work, is pushing more and more of us into a kind of acquired ADHD. I know I wasn't born with ADHD, yet I could benefit from the focusing medicine too. What about people like me? Maybe we all need a little help. We do. In theory, you're right. In our society, many are in a situation where their nervous system is switching gears so often that people feel like they can't pay attention anymore. If you were to take someone without ADHD out of that society and put them back in a reasonable environment, their attention would return back to a reasonable place. But if a person has ADHD and you take them out of that environment and put them back into a reasonable environment, they're still having attention problems. So that's really important for people nowadays to understand that not all attention problems are ADHD. Now we're on this page. ADHDers often excel at creativity but feel hamstrung when asked to churn through numbers or execute reports. If you can, it's best to flow with your strengths and leave tasks that heighten ADHD symptoms or traits to others on the team. ADHD is a version of attention problems that is lifelong, largely biologically determined, runs in families, and that you will likely have to manage all the time. Situationally specific attention problems, like you just described, have a different solution. The solution is to change your environment, to change your habits, to get back to a place that is more reasonable, to carry less of a cognitive load. But between those two extremes, there are people with mild ADHD traits, never before diagnosable, who are being pushed further than ever before due to all the stress society places on us. Yes, for the first time ever, we're experiencing people like these who are actually being pushed into the medical range. But for these folks, the place to start could be with the environmental modifications and making deliberate choices about their daily routines and their lifestyles. Those folks could have a good shot at getting back to an okay place without needing medication. And what about those with ADHD who also have traits of other disorders? For instance, they may tend to ruminate. They may have some anxiety or depression or some traits of autism without having autism itself. Sometimes those other concerns are secondary to ADHD. For example, if a person has anxiety apart from their ADHD, then their ADHD may result in hyperactive thoughts and they may ruminate, and that may make their anxiety even worse. At the same time, you may have somebody who doesn't have a lifelong history of anxiety, but because they have had such a tough time in the world, they develop anxiety because of their ADHD. They're expecting to fail. Those things intersect with each other, sometimes because of a shared biological risk, and sometimes as a consequence of having ADHD. Good clinicians try to assess all of these dimensions and then try to treat everyone individually. Today, we know there's no classic look to ADHD. ADHD is really diverse. It can look really differently in different people. but most people with ADHD have at least one other comorbidity, one other psych symptom. So having other symptoms is not the exception, but the rule. When people are experiencing problems with attention, should they be looking for causes aside from ADHD? They need to question whether they have ADHD at all, because there are a lot of reasons why people could be experiencing attentional problems that aren't ADHD. For example, some people have attention problems because they're having dysregulation of their thyroid and they need to go on thyroid medication. I have been saying that I need to get my thyroid checked. Another example is that women who are in menopause sometimes experience symptoms that are like ADHD because of hormonal changes. And they might want to be talking to their doctor about hormonal replacement therapy. There are people who have such bad anxiety that they feel like they have ADHD, but they should not be on a stimulant medication. From a risk and safety perspective, it's important to confer with a medical professional to just make sure the bases are covered. Influencers have done a great deal to destigmatize ADHD on social media, but that has popularized the diagnosis among people looking for answers to their challenges in general. There are a lot of relatable stories being shared on social media about ADHD, but just because a person with ADHD is having a particular experience, it doesn't mean that people without ADHD don't also have that experience. Let me back up. A distractibility and concentration problem is the second most common symptom of any mental disorder. So it could be that perhaps 100% of people with ADHD are distractible. But if you tell me that you're distractible, that's not going to help me diagnose ADHD, because so are lots of other people. One of the more discriminating symptoms of ADHD to a professional involved in diagnosis might be chronic problems fidgeting. Not everyone with ADHD has that, yet it's getting closer to something that is unique to ADHD, and you need a provider to help you sort it out. You need to write down your owner's manual to understand the factors that lead you to do your best. If you know yourself well, you can be the pilot. After the problem has been identified, how can people find their niche? Don't put yourself in an environment where the things that you struggle with are the criteria for success. If you are a person who has trouble sitting still, it's going to be harder for you to be successful in a sedentary office job all day. You might be way more successful in a job that allows you to move around and do different things. If you know that about yourself, you can be deliberate about your life choices. If you're thinking about a career change, inventory your strengths and weaknesses. Inventory what makes, because people can do that while looking for a job, because we have time to be like, what are my strengths? No, I need money. Hello. Okay. If you're thinking about a career change, inventory your strengths and weaknesses, inventory what makes someone successful in that job, and ask yourself if there's a fit there. The personal environment fit is the key concept to keep an eye on, because when things get out of control and you're in an environment that is not a good fit for you, you're going to be way more vulnerable. On that side of the coin, if you find out what you're pretty good at and you invest in getting even better at it, people will be more forgiving of your weaknesses because they value your strengths. Those with ADHD are entitled to a lot of support. It's the law. How can we build a safety net for those with ADHD traits, but without a medical diagnosis? There is a fluctuation of severity in most people with ADHD traits. There will be years where things feel way more out of control, and years where you may feel like you don't have ADHD at all. And you will feel great and things are going well. You need to write your own owner's manual to understand the factors that lead you to do your best or cause you to struggle. You must be able to pay attention to what's going on around you. When you know you're about to walk into a period of life that may have some risks, you must get ahead of it. Go talk to a doctor. Be mindful of management strategy, because people have money in the U.S. to go to the doctor like that. Be mindful of the management strategies that you need to use. If you know yourself well, you can be the pilot. Sometimes people with ADHD have a narrow range of options available to them in life to help them succeed. That they can be really successful if they can identify what the range of options is that can provide a success for them. For people with ADHD-like traits, the key to staying in that good zone is really knowing what they need and actively seeking that out. The ADHD tax. I absolutely know that I pay more for having ADHD. There's a rising cost to the condition beyond what you spend on treatment. Here's how to lower the fee. Let me sit down to read this. It's library fines for overdue books that have been sitting in your car ready to be returned. It's gas money for repeatedly driving to the store for something you forgot to buy. And it's whatever you impulsively bought instead that you didn't need. It's failing to return those impulsive buys because you haven't gotten around to it, or buying something else for the 5th time because you can't find the first 4 you bought. So, yes, I have a perfect example of this. So, every time I'm out of Ziploc bags and I go to the store, I get Ziploc bags, and then I forget that I bought Ziploc bags. So now I have a whole slew of Ziploc bags because I forget that, yeah, I already bought that. So now I have like 1,000 Ziploc bags because I bought them, and then I forgot I bought them, and I bought them again, and then I bought them again, and then I bought them again. So, yeah, absolutely. It's your bloated food budget because you eat out frequently instead of facing the challenge of meal planning, which meal prepping and meal planning for me is very hard. Okay. Or the food you throw out every week because it went bad before you remembered to eat it or you planned to eat it. That's so Mondays and Thursdays I meal prep, and I try to meal prep based off of what's going to go bad first in the fridge. Okay. It's all the membership fees and subscriptions you pay because you forgot to cancel the free trials and the missed appointment fees you get when you arrive at a doctor's appointment so late you have to reschedule. It's late fees on missed bills and the penalty you pay every year to the IRS because you've never, ever paid your taxes on time. I don't know a single ADHD person who does not get an extension on their taxes, says Linda Rogley, a professional certified coach and founder of the ADIVA network for ADHD women 40 and better. It's the ADHD tax, and it affects a lot of people with the condition. In fact, a study from renowned clinical psychologist Russell Barkley, PhD, the author of Taking Charge of ADHD, the complete authoritative guide for parents, found that 67% of adults with ADHD struggle to manage their money compared to 15% of adults without the condition. It's extra time, it's extra money, it's frustration, guilt, and reduced self-esteem. All of what ADHD costs people with neurodiverse brains. Rogley says 10 years ago, she actually calculated how much her own ADHD had cost her just in late fees, purchases of items she didn't use, and similar incidents. It totaled $250,000. That is too much money to be thrown away. But okay, living large. For me, it's been paying for storage because my home can no longer contain all the paraphernalia I've collected, including tons of supplies from when I took up long-distance cycling, then scuba diving, then newborn photography. Today, I no longer do any of those things with any regularity. Yeah, I have hobbies that I need to sell the hobbies because I just don't. Rogley says she's had many clients who buy everything associated with a new project or hobby, but never follow through on it. It's really about collecting all the stuff. That's the journey, she said. No, we mean to do it. We mean to, I went to make candles and I was bad at it, so I no longer make candles. But we mean to do it and we mean to get good at it. We just the follow through. It's the follow through. But the cost can be far greater than these incidentals because people with ADHD don't earn as much as those without ADHD, Rogley points out. A major reason for that is lower educational attainment, documented in multiple studies. So I have an associate's degree, but degrees nowadays, unless you're a doctor or a lawyer, mean jack. Let's see. Major reason for lower attainment. Past research has estimated that only 21% of people with ADHD pursue higher education, and only 5% who attend college actually graduate. Another cost, people with ADHD frequently lose their jobs because of difficulties related to their symptoms. I've only ever lost one job, and it wasn't because of my symptoms. Another cost, people with ADHD frequently lose their jobs because of the difficulties related to their symptoms. They get fired for showing up late, for mouthing off. That's the one I would get. If I were to get fired for anything, it would be mouthing off at my boss. for not getting along with coworkers, for not turning in projects on time. Rogley says one 2020 study found that a man with ADHD will earn an estimated $1.27 million less than his peers over his working lifetime and reach retirement with up to 75% lower net worth. The city could practically put an extra wing on the library for all my late fees paid over the years. Rick Webster. Well, that's sad. Losing track. The city could practically put an extra... Oh, I already said that. Jokes, a founder of Rena Fi, a financial education and lifestyle management company catering to people with ADHD. But it's only half a joke. Webster also recalled when decades ago he had 800 in speeding tickets that turned into 11,000 in fines and court and attorney fees because he kept putting off dealing with them. That is insane. Don't put off dealing with cop stuff. Get it over with. I can relate. I once let my car go unregistered for more than 5 years because I'd misplaced my license when it came time to renew it. And that set off a cascade of reasons, including the pandemic, that I couldn't get it done. By the time I technically could, it had become such a huge, intimidating, impossible task that I felt incapable of taking the handful of steps necessary to accomplish it. Which, that's just bureaucratic red tape BS. When you own your car, own your car. I don't believe in registration and all the other bullshit. Like, yes, I know we need it and we have to do it, but I absolutely don't think it's necessary in the society. None of these examples of the ADHD tax are related to the actual medical care to manage ADHD, such as quarterly appointments with your psychiatrist, regularly seeing a therapist, or paying for a prescription. Yeah, the cost associated with having ADHD, just going to the doctor alone, is enough to make me not want to seek help. America needs Medicare and all. In fact, for some, there can be other medical costs that are also life-threatening. For example, developing cancer because of forgetting or putting off preventative screenings, such as pap smears or colonoscopies, or having car accidents due to speeding or inattentiveness. Researchers are only now starting to recognize and calculate the non-medical costs of having ADHD. In a 2020 study, Australian researchers calculated the combined healthcare, productivity, education, justice system, and dead weight loss, the cost of society from market inefficiency, such as lost tax revenue, of ADHD. They found it amounted to an annual $15,664 per person with ADHD in 2018 and 2019. Healthcare costs in Australia's socialized healthcare system made up only 4% of that, while productivity costs, including disadvantages in job seeking, temporary absenteeism, and reduced work productivity, made up 81%. You can recoup the loss. While people with ADHD may not be able to completely eliminate all the ways their condition costs them, Rogley and Webster offer several tips that could save thousands of dollars over a lifetime. Webster emphasizes the importance of getting a correct diagnosis. He says about 3 in 10 people who suspect they have ADHD actually have a different condition. So someone with sleep apnea who self-medicates with a stimulant, these people need education, I swear. But this is part of why I am reading this magazine to you, is to educate the public. So, stimulants for sleep. Oh my goodness. Okay. Self-medicates with a stimulant only makes their situation worse. Once you have a proper diagnosis, use the treatments available. I'm amazed at how many people won't medicate for whatever reason, even though medication helps 80%. Oh, really? You're confused as why people don't medicate? Because I have to take the time, because the last time that I tried, I'm a rant. The last time that I tried to get medication for my ADHD, I made the appointment. Okay, I did. I made the appointment. It was for a month out because I need time. I have to plan everything in my life. So I made the appointment. I went there the day before because it was it was a couple hours away. It was a doctor that I had seen. Anyway, it was a whole thing. So I had stayed the night in a hotel with money that I did not have to stay there. And they called me that morning and canceled my appointment. So you tell me you're confused why people with ADHD don't seek medication? Because fucking medical professionals in this society make it difficult to actually get the help that we need. I'm amazed at how many people won't medicate for whatever reason, even though medication helps 80% of people with ADHD, he says. Remember to quack. So we're going to be reading this portion, this blue portion now. Repeat this handy acronym to protect your pocketbook. It's easy for someone with ADHD to go off the rails and spend too much money in a state of distraction, but Rugley says the letters spelling a duck's call quack just might help you hold back. Ask questions before buying something. Is it a final sale item? What's the return policy? How easy is it to return? Is there a time limit? Because I'm going to remember to do this when I'm out shopping, sure. Will you use it? It's important to ask yourself whether you actually will, not just whether you can. Automate everything you can, such as recurring payments or automatic withdrawals for utility bills and other recurring costs. This will make up for your leaky memory. Put everything on a calendar. That's absolutely what I do. With reminders such as when to get an oil change to save on avoidable car repairs later, when to renew registrations, when digital purchases or classes expire, or when appointments are. Keep things in your shopping cart to give yourself a cool down period before clicking to purchase. I have so many things just left in my shopping carts because I never remember to go back to purchase anything. Rogley also recommends using price comparison apps before a purchase, which builds an additional time to decide if you really need it, and a budgeting system such as You Need a Budget or envelopes. Webster also points out the importance of facing your challenges head on instead of avoiding them. For example, when a scary letter from the IRS or bill collector arrives, open the mail, Webster says. The solution's probably in there. It's worse not knowing what's in there. At least when it's a known threat, you know what you can do. Okay. While people with ADHD may not be able to completely eliminate the ways as their condition costs them, offer tips that could save thousands of dollars over a lifetime. I already read all that. These basic strategies will go a long way, but usually not all the way in eliminating symptoms. In addition, Rogley suggests asking for accommodations at work or school. She says there's more support for ADHD students, regardless of age, now that at any time in the past, and at work, you don't even necessarily need to disclose your ADHD diagnosis to ask for any helpful changes in your job situation. The whole point is to couch this in terms of benefit to the company, she says. I know I can perform better for you and make you look good and the company look good if I have a little more time or if I have a space without a window. If you're struggling to stay above water, a nonprofit credit counseling organization can come up with a personalized plan for tackling your debt. Thankfully, I only have medical debt because I'm in the US. If you happen to have some savings, consider a reputable professional money manager to help out. Okay. Yay, finally more pictures. Okay. So the superpowers, the neurodiverse talents that accompany ADHD include creativity, divergent thinking, a deep hyperfocus that can lead to extraordinary accomplishment. The evolutionary advantage. People with ADHD helped hunter-gatherer groups survive long before the dawn of agriculture. New research shows highlighting the value of traits that drive exploration and risk-taking today by Jason Teach. Thousands of years before the dawn of agriculture, a small clan of hunter-gatherers scavenges for food. While most of them diligently pick nuts and berries from the ever sparser growth near their camp, one antsy individual stands out, distracted, his attention flitting all around his surroundings. He doesn't dig for scraps amid the dwindling resource supply because he's impatient, frankly bored. Finally, he scans the horizon, spots what could be a field in the distance, and makes a beeline for it, anxious to find out what it holds and whether it might be more fruitful than the group's present patch of land. So as a child, I would just walk off because I would be bored, and then I would get lost, and then my parents would panic. So today, this fellow with itchy feet might be diagnosed with ADHD and given a stimulant to medicate him and help him function at school or on the job. But back in the Paleolithic, his unique set of traits were crucial to his group's survival. His sheer inquisitiveness, heightened awareness, and sensitivity to environmental cues, and impatience with diminishing returns alerted him to resources others had overlooked or had not sought. While they were scrounging for the leftovers of their depleted land, his restless energy made him hyper-aware of the imminent threat to their little circumscribed patch and attuned the opportunities that might lie beyond. His impatience and distractibility from the quotidian activities others pursued in a moribund world and his constant need for novelty pushed him to strike out over the ridges and hills for new and better frontiers, eventually bringing his lucky clan with him. In a world where resources are scarce and scattered, such as an individual's inclination to grow restless and explore his surroundings gives his clan a significant advantage. By quickly losing interest in less promising resource sites, he saves his group precious time and energy in the pursuit of more fruitful sources of game, vegetation, water, and supplies, such as wood and stones. This instinct reduces the group's odds of starvation, decreases their workload, and increases their nutritional intake, which improves their health, physical robustness against cold, predation, and disease, and their overall survival and reproductive success. This allows the group's genes, including the one mental traits, to perpetuate and propagate in the gene pool through selection. In this case, favors groups that contain one or more humans with quickly shifting focus and impulsivity, that is, those with ADHD, over groups without such individuals. Testing prehistoric survival in the lab. The long-standing hypothesis that ADHD gave some early humans a survival edge now is backed up by evidence, thanks to a new study by researchers at the University of Pennsylvania and the Indian Institutes of Technology. We've always felt that a lot of high achievers have these tendencies, says IIT's Arjun Ramakrishnan, one of the study's lead authors. I botched that, I'm sorry. While these traits may sound suboptimal, in some ways, why do they continue to exist today? Why have they been passed on? There must have been some advantages. The hunter at right, depicting one of the shell mound people of the late Mesolithic scouts of the horizon for more abundant game, as possible ADHD could have helped his struggling hunter-fisher-gatherer group stretch their resources. To test this hypothesis, the researchers designed an online game that simulated the challenge of foraging faced by our nomadic ancestors. Participants were presented with a series of different land patches on their computer screens and were allowed to harvest digital berries from them at regular intervals. Each patch ultimately offered a diminishing return on investment, with the rate of berries collected going down the longer participants harvested them from the same patch. Given the decline, subjects were offered two choices at regular intervals. Ramakrishnan explains they could stay at their present patch and harvest more berries, yielding fewer results than their previous harvest, or they could choose to move on to the next patch, paying a cost in the time associated with travel. The trade-off essentially was between how long do you want to continue harvesting from your present patch for continuous but continuously declining reward yields, versus are you ready to spend a number of seconds traveling while you won't get any reward at all in order to reach a new untapped resource patch that begins offering you higher reward yields until it too depletes with repeated harvests. The results were striking. Participants who scored high on ADHD self-reported scales were likely to leave patches earlier, and crucially, their strategy achieved higher reward rates overall. These guys are actually being more optimal, Ramakrishnan notes, and the rest of the people are actually being suboptimal by overstaying. Rethinking ADHD in the modern world. This study sheds new light on the role of ADHD in human evolution in large societies or large groups of hunter-gatherers. There are always specialist hunters, says Ramakrishnan. People with ADHD might be very good at handling anything that was very high adrenaline. Usually when there's time pressure, when there's high demand, that's when their focus levels really increase. So yes, absolutely. When I am stressed and when I am pressured, like I am on point. ADHD traits from quick thinking to the ability to pivot faster under pressure would dramatically increase any group's chance of survival. Jobs fit for ADHD brains. So we're here now on all of these. So let me do this. High school teacher. So spends the day in live performance, changing students each period. Firefighter whizzes around putting out flames, rescuing cats and diffusing bombs. Police officer patrols the streets and responds to emergencies. Community journalist canvasses the neighborhood, reporting on non-local events. And then we have the dentist manages and treats patients' teeth, preserving their oral health. Hairstylist shapes clients' locks artistically while chatting intimately. Okay, so I'm going to stop reading it like this so that I can read it like this. Coder intensely writes computer scripts to run industry in the world. IT engineer spends the day setting up everyone's devices and phones, which I would be fine with working in tech. Careers involving these strengths and activities might work for you. Experiencing novelty and relying on your personality, using your hands, hyper-focusing, having an adventure. Nurse monitors patients and cares for their changing health. Archaeologist travels the world, rescuing old bones and uncovering ancient ruins. Carpenter works with wood, creating beautiful, useful items. FBI or CIA agent, I don't agree with. If you want to be a human, don't become anything like government related, especially if you arrest people. Don't ever be somebody who arrests people. You're not a good person if you are. Tracks down perpetrators of federal or international crimes. Welder shapes and solders metals, creating elegant construction pieces. Airline pilot swoops through the skies, taking people to exotic locales. Chef cooks creatively for hungry gourmets. Tour guide explores exciting sights, exercising the gift of gab. So we'll come back to this. The findings have implications for the modern world too. Ramakrishnan believes that the current approach to treatment, usually by diagnosing people based on their symptoms and then medicating them, can be improved. We are putting people with ADHD into a box, and we are then telling them that they have to take these medications to live in the box. Maybe we need a more open view, Ramakrishnan suggests. In other words, perhaps we should be altering work environments for individuals with ADHD so that they not only function better and more efficiently, but are also empowered to tap their specialized gifts and skills. Redesigning the workplace for neurodiverse minds. We're going to have to work towards that goal because our culture has, in some ways, veered in the opposite direction. Today, we are drowning in more meaningless distractions than ever before. From social media pings to video games on our phones, the input is so constant that it could potentially reduce any selective advantage that ADHD traits might confer in a quieter world. On the other hand, modern civilization offers job specialization and an abundance of choice that can open up new ventures for those with ADHD. I think what we have today, which we didn't have earlier, is a plethora of different types of jobs, different environments that we've created for ourselves. Ramakrishnan notes, and they're all well suited for different types of people. And I think it's up to us to explore that. People with ADHD often excel in dynamic, fast-paced environments that require quick adaptation and decision-making. If you think about more exciting activities, such as being an entrepreneur or being in an active stock market, where things are fluctuating and lots of things are happening that you have to keep track of and things are moving really quickly with lots of deadlines, those are tasks that they might be able to pay attention to. Ramakrishna says, to expand on this research, Ramakrishnan's lab is exploring the creation of optimal work conditions for those with ADHD. We are looking at how different people cope with different kinds of environments and how varied conditions would help them excel, he explains. By understanding factors that influence the performance of those with the diagnosis, the team hopes to come up with the concept for tailoring workspaces and tasks to the unique strengths of individuals with ADHD. But the idea goes beyond just people with ADHD. The findings invite us to reconsider all types of neurodiversity that may have been brought benefit to our ancestors, and that may help us still today. If individuals can be in a situation that is well suited to their nature in terms of how quickly or slowly they adapt, Ramakrishnan says, I think they would make really good use of it. With this new perspective, we can begin to build a society that allows neurodivergent people to thrive, much like the hunter-gatherers did back in the day. Okay, we are now here. We can look at this crazy nonsense of a picture while I read. The great gifts. ADHD might make your life more trying and complex, but it also offers some exciting advantages. Here's how to tap them by Kim and Penn Holderness. Divergent thinkers, ADHDers, don't rely on working memory to do things the way they have been done a million times before. Instead of taking the pre-cut path, they use their machetes to wind up someplace wild and new. You may have long suspected that you have undiscovered or unappreciated gifts. Maybe you are a quick draw with a witty remark, or known as the Energizer Bunny among friends for your ability to keep moving long after others have flagged. Yes, I am constantly moving. Maybe you find yourself transported to a superhuman focus when really engaged by a task. Welcome to the blessings of ADHD. They are a myriad and amazing. Creative thinking. ADHDers are not especially gung-ho about executing, iterating, and refining, but we're top-notch idea generators and brainstormers. We come at life with fresh angles, solve problems in clever new ways, and aren't hemmed in by tradition, which leads to incredible inventions, art, and business ideas. I really want a cat cafe where cats massage you. I have a video. You can look at it. But yes, we're the best when it comes to innovating and ideas and stuff. It's just the execution part that's bleh. Our minds, let's see. Nope. Our minds are like off-leash dogs, free to explore instead of being made to heal. In addition of powering the actors, musicians, and artists of the world, creativity can show up as the ability to keep people from dozing off during a presentation, or a knack for solving problems that have stumped everyone for years. Research scientist Holly White, PhD, conducted a couple of fascinating studies at the University of Michigan that demonstrated... I'm so glad there are more pictures. Picture! Oh my goodness, look. Look at it. I love it when stuff like this happens. That's so cool. Hyperfocus. ADHDers in this altered state can achieve utter clarity, unaware of biological needs, temperature, or time. They zero in on the project at hand as if it is all that exists and work through it with deft inner confidence until done. This is a cool picture here. Okay. Just how cool the creative ADHD brain can be. In one of them, White and team asked students with and without ADHD to imagine and draw a fruit from another planet. That sounds like fun. Non-ADHD participants basically drew stripes on an apple and called it a day. ADHDers came up with wackier fruits, far less recognizable to Earthlings. They were better at setting aside information that other people would probably deem important. That fruit is usually round, for example, and designed something much more interesting. Some added out-of-left-field features to their fruit, including tongues and hammers. Your ADHD brain's ability to teleport from one thought to another instead of traveling well-worn paths means your thoughts are infused with originality. Let's say you're thinking about what to get your mother for her birthday. You might remember she likes birding, and 2 seconds later you get distracted by the curve of the handle on the handmade mug you're drinking your coffee out of. Seconds later, you are on the internet looking for local pottery classes where your mom could make her own bird bath. My job, Penn, requires constant creative output, and my ADHD brain is there for it. One way we pay the bills is by doing musical collaborations with companies trying to engineer viral videos. A couple of years ago, we got a call from Velcro companies. They wanted us to pitch a campaign to persuade people to stop using the name Velcro to describe the hook and loop fasteners. Apparently, if brands become so synonymous with their product that the brand name replaces the product, the company can lose their trademark. That's interesting. We don't have a deficit of our attention. We have an abundance. Our challenge is to control it. Once we can do that, the sky's the limit in terms of what we can do in life. Edward Howell. We flew up to Boston for a meeting. As soon as I heard the ask, ideas exploded like popcorn in my brain. I looked away and started bobbing my head. Velcro companies folks were looking around at each other with expressions that read, "What's with this guy?" But my coworkers knew I'd launched into a creative space. When the meeting ended, the elevator doors had barely closed when I told my team, "I've got it." I definitely misspoke that line, but it's fine. We're going to keep moving. The idea I came up with was a parody of the We Are the World video from 1985. I wanted it to have the look and feel of that video, but instead of a group of pop stars singing about coming together to help those in need, I wanted a bunch of fancy pants lawyers begging people to please stop calling their product Velcro. We got in a cab, and by the time we got to the airport, the lyrics were already written. Back home, I composed the music in 15 minutes and sent it to my team. They loved it, but they said, "You know we can't send this yet, right? The execs at Velcro companies will think it was too easy to justify the fee." But because of the arrangement of molecules in my brain and the way I process things, it was easy for me. I was on a different level of consciousness, concentration, creativity. I had ruffled feathers with my seemingly antisocial behavior in the meeting, but the feathers were smooth when we delivered a video they loved. The creativity and insight that come with ADHD is your gift too. Yours might appear on a canvas or a construction site or on the basketball court, but I bet it's there. Those of us with ADHD often take an unexpected path to arrive at a solution, partly because of challenges with our working memory. We don't simply rely on how things have always been done. We're far more likely to come up with a new solution than to make minor tweaks to the conventional solution, and this can lead to major innovation. I bet some of you struggled with showing your work in math classes. Yes, absolutely. Me too. I found different ways to arrive at problems in my head. Sometimes the next level of math will be a lot more complicated than you think, and your homemade version of solving the problem could blow up in your face. But if an issue is sticky, divergent thinking can lead to brilliant answers. Hyperfocus. While creativity takes advantage of our brain's ability to move freely, a complementary skill keeps us mentally in place. Hyperfocus. Most often, our ADHD brains flit around like dandelion seeds in the wind, pulling this way and that as the currents dictate. Sure, it can sometimes be frustrating, but those seeds hit the right patch of soil. Their roots dig in so deep they're near impossible to budge. This is hyperfocus, an elevated stage of rapt attention where the ADHD brain locks into intense focus, and when it does, it's unstoppable. Being in the zone is, for the most part, awesome. Pathfinders, ADHDers can create custom-made lives built on their considerable strengths and unusual talents, flowing with the natural contours of their brains instead of boring, straight, and narrow. Hyperfocus is the ability to block out stimuli so well that you have a mental tunnel vision. Everything else is out of focus, but one dot in the middle is totally clear, like in a movie when our hero sees their love for the first time, and everything else fades away. It's the background. They stare enchanted at the magical creature before them. Then they come to and are standing in the middle of the street holding a half-eaten slice of pizza with no idea how long they've been mesmerized. I snap into hyperfocus when I'm composing music. I lose myself in notes, swimming in tunes, rhymes, and rhythms. Songs present themselves to me with ease. When hyperfocus kicks in, it feels like a superpower. When I have actually messaged my best friend before and told her that I was a super person, and she laughed at me, and I told her I was Batman. Anyway, that's the thing. Okay. When I slip into hyperfocus, I'm completely undistractable and indestructible. Hyperfocus is an altered state. You're not aware of biological needs or temperature or time. It's as if your body's signals are blocked. Your hunger, fatigue, scratchy pants, they might as well be happening to a totally different body. It feels like time is simultaneously standing still and whizzing by. As my colleague Dr. Edward Halwell said, this great irony and beauty of hyperfocus is you don't notice it at all because you're not noticing anything. You're one with the task. How can we separate the dancer from the dance? The downsides of hyperfocus is, let me just tell you, it's not being able to do anything else and then getting aggravated when somebody else comes into your line and then you lose then it's frustration and just a whole thing. When we slip into hyperfocus, every switch is turned off except for the one connected to whatever holds our attention, and that's turned up to 11. This is great for being productive, but not great if the toilet is overflowing or you have a hair appointment. If you have a hair appointment. I have missed after-school pickups because I've been deep in hyperfocus. I also get so far down a rabbit hole, I have trouble letting in ideas from other people. It's hard to absorb information. I haven't sought out myself. Sometimes that goes spectacularly badly, and it can lead to serious mistakes. You get to be creative with your one precious life here on Earth. Your life with ADHD can be something you want for yourself. Kim and Penn Holderness. Designing your life. Another gift of ADHD is the ability to design your own life instead of picking one off the rack. We can't just cruise through life on autopilot. We have to put real effort into making life work for our brains. Yes, I'm constantly putting forth as much effort as humanly possible because of my brain. Other people can roll happily through their days without the snags we face. To make matters worse, our brains have less energy to direct toward the effort in the first place. The flip side to not fitting into the well-worn grooves society has dug out for us is that we can carve our own grooves. It's not that we have to craft our lives to work for our ADHD brains. We get to. I kind of disagree, but sure. The extra energy it takes us to manage can remind us to be thoughtful and deliberate about our choices. If you come from a long line of doctors, for example, everyone might assume you'll be the next one in the family to don a white coat. But if you accept that your ADHD brain is not going to put up with hours of lectures about comorbidities, you save yourself heartache and hassle by acknowledging that med school may not be for you. Sorry, Mom and Dad. You have the chance to carve out your own unique existence. Why settle for cookie cutter when you are an eclair? Because if you come from a long line of doctors and you don't want to be a doctor, you want to be poor. Unless you're trying to be an investor or something, like if you have the chance to become a doctor, why would you not take it? In my opinion, that's just me. Without going into debt, I don't ever recommend debt. Like people that go into debt for school, or, you don't do that unless you're becoming a doctor or a lawyer. And even then, you don't want to be straddled to debt, because if you're halfway through school being a lawyer and you decide you don't want to do it, you're strapped to that for the rest of your life. So don't get strapped to debt. Maybe you would prefer to travel the world by boat instead of settling in a cul-de-sac. Maybe you will switch jobs every couple of years instead of putting in 40 years at one company. Maybe you will duck out of the traditional education in favor of the school of life. The possibilities of a life you design for yourself instead of following a blueprint are endless. And now we're going to talk about when ADHD is awesome. Kim Holderness, on her family's journey through neurodiversity to happiness and success. Kim and Penn Holderness met as young reporters, aged 27 and 29 in 2003, and spent years working in TV news. Then in 2013, they created Xmas Jammies, a joyous video that served as their family's holiday card and went viral, convincing them they could leave their day jobs and give internet content creation a go. I actually like these people. I've watched these people before. They're pretty cool. 10 years later, the two have a thriving business, have won The Amazing Race, and have written ADHD is Awesome, a best-selling book about the upsides of ADHD. When I first met Penn, he was goofy, charming, and spontaneous, Kim says. I didn't know that he had ADHD, but as their family grew, the load pushed his symptoms into higher gear. Penn's mother had served as his executive functioning while he was in school, Kim explains, and when he married her, the job fell to Kim, so she has to mother her man. Okay, but he's a really cool dude. Like, I don't want to talk shit because they're a really cool couple. But let's see. Until she told him he had to do it himself. Ever since, Penn has worked hard to manage his projects and create an ADHD-friendly life. He has a job that requires he do 10 things a day, and he hyper-focuses. Internet content creator is the ideal job for someone with ADHD. I guess that's why I'm here. Says Kim, who runs the business end while Penn writes the music. Penn, with his day-to-day planning anymore, she says, I offer him grace. If he leaves the stove on and the smoke alarm goes off, I don't jump down his throat. I offer him connection. I say that must be awful. ADHD runs in families, and the Holderness' son, Penn Charles, 14, was recently diagnosed with ADHD too. The doctor delivered the news like it was a disease, Kim says. But she knows better. My son is so creative. He also hyper-focuses. He locks in, and I can't wait to see what he'll do next. Pamela Weintraub. Okay. Divergent minds. We're almost done. I'm at the end here. I've got a couple more little pages left. And this is about, I guess, celebrities with other celebrities with ADHD. Creativity is known to be a benefit of ADHD, so it's not surprising that many highly successful entertainers have the condition. Often, despite the difficulties it may have given them, it actually has helped power their art. Here are just a few of their stories. Greta Gerwig, director of Barbie, not to mention Little Women and Lady Bird, told The Guardian that as a kid, my mom was like, let's sign her up for every activity. Let's tire her out. I've always had a tremendous amount of enthusiasm. I was just interested in, like, everything. I had a really active imagination. I had a lot of really deep feelings. I was emotional. Barry Keoghan, I guess. Irish actor Barry Keoghan always suspected that he had ADHD, but it wasn't diagnosed until his late 20s. It's something that should be recognized and talked about in adults. He told Esquire magazine, lauded for his roles in the critically acclaimed movies The Banshee, Saltburn, Killing of Sacred Deer, and Dunkirk. He credits medication. What was that just popped up on my phone? Oh, low battery. Okay. Well, I'm almost done, but here, let me find my battery pack. 1 moment, please. While I find my battery pack. I'm almost done. I'm so close that I just want to finish this because this is like the 4th hour that I'm going into doing this. And if you haven't seen the other 2 videos so far in this little Impulse series, ADHD Magazine thing, they are also under my live content. And you should press all the buttons if you're here. Okay. He credits medication for managing his symptoms. My mind used to be like a crazy traffic jam. And then with the medication, it's like one car goes, then another car goes. Tanya Barksley. She's pretty. Pretty girl. Pretty girl. Okay. The Real Housewives of Cheshire alumnus Tanya Bardsley has been open about her ADHD during a chat with Andrew Kitley for the podcast The Invisible Gift. She said, "You'll find out that most entrepreneurs have ADHD because we've got like 17 TVs going on in our head, whereas someone without has just got one. So we're just like, right, to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing." Yes, absolutely. Okay. Daniel Kwan, the Everything Everywhere All at Once co-director, learned he had ADHD while conducting research for the acclaimed film. "I stayed up until like 4 a.m, just reading everything I could find about it, just crying," Kwan told Salon in 2022. "So this movie is the reason why I got diagnosed. This movie, when you look at it now, was made by someone with ADHD." Simone Biles, the great Olympic gymnast Simone Biles, with 7 medals to her name, 4 of them gold, also happens to have ADHD. Back in 2016, hackers released her medical record, hoping to stop her dominance. They failed. And she courageously spoke out then on Twitter, commenting, "Having ADHD and taking medication for it is nothing to be ashamed of. Nothing that I'm afraid to let people know." Ty Pennington. I didn't know he had it. When his mom, studying to be a child psychologist, came to observe the worst kid at school, she was shocked to find out it was him. Ty Pennington, the home improvement guru, told the Huffington Post, "Within 20 minutes, I stripped naked and swung on the blinds." Pennington now takes medicine from time to time in small doses, channeling his symptoms into his career and hobbies. "Once I figured out I was pretty decent at art and people were interested in hiring me, I realized I had a skill besides injuring myself," he said. Lisa Ling. Journalist Lisa Ling got a sneaking suspicion that she might have ADHD during a filming of a recent ADHD-themed episode of Our America with Lisa Ling. Her reporting on the disorder compelled her to get an evaluation, and at age 40, she was diagnosed with adult ADHD. "My head is kind of spinning," she said in an episode after receiving her diagnosis, "but I feel a little bit of relief because for so long I've been fighting it, and I've been so frustrated with this condition." Adam Levine. Maroon 5 lead singer Adam Levine, which, bro, yes, you're awesome. Diagnosed as a kid, he was able to manage his symptoms as a child, but as he got older, they could be incapacitating. So he returned to treatment. "I had trouble sometimes writing songs and recording in the studio. I couldn't always focus and complete everything I had to. So when I went back to the doctor and I learned that I still have ADHD. If you were diagnosed as a kid, you might still have it now," which absolutely, yes. Okay. So this is advocating for you and yours. There's a bunch of information about self-help stuff. Here, I'll just read it. "A self-help guide for ADHDers and their patients, spouses, and friends" by Pamela Weintraub and Mark Tieck. These days, with the science on ADHD evolving so significantly, the stigmas have begun to fade. The opportunities to inform yourself, find community, and advocate for you and your loved ones are more available and abundant than ever. Many of these tools are just an online click away. Here are some of the best places to start. Organizations: CHAD, ADA, Child Mind Institute, Children and Adults with Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. CHAD.org is the largest organization supporting those with ADHD. Its annual conference can be attended either in person or online, so parents, professionals, and patients can participate worldwide. It also sponsors local chapters and networks for parents to connect. Attention Deficit Disorder Association, or ADDA, AD.org, is dedicated to adults with ADHD, starting with a symptoms checklist on the home page, head on the Healthy Habits and ADHD Brain group, and a slew of workshops and peer groups from men's and women's and young adults groups to an African Americans group and a queer and non-binary group. Child Mind Institute, for parents who want an accurate, concise primer that gives the basics clearly and cleanly. There's nothing better than this organization's quick guide to attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. To find it, go to the website at childmind.org and search for ADHD. Magazines, attitudemagazine.com or attitudemag.com is a digital magazine for ADHD patients, their parents, and medical professionals. It covers the latest news week by week and features a treasure trove of deep resources that could take you literally years to explore. We especially recommend the coverage of girls and women and the weekly podcasts. Attention, chad.org/attention magazine is a bi-monthly parent and patient-focused paid subscription magazine for Chad with both digital and print versions, offering evidence-based information on ADHD. Its archives contain many free articles, and the digital subscription grants full online access. Website, russellbarkley.org. Dr. Russell Barkley's website, including YouTube videos, fact sheets, and online courses, gathers a lifetime of wisdom from one of the most respected scientists in the field. So there's a bunch of books: Taking Charge of ADHD, Taking Charge of Adult ADHD, Driven to Distraction, ADHD 2.0, Straight Talk About ADHD and Girls, Women with ADHD, Divergent Mind, How to Keep House While Drowning, ADHD's Effect on Marriage, Extra Focus, Guide something, Adult ADHD. Podcasts. If you have ADHD, you might not want to spend your time reading one of the wonderful books listed above from beginning to end, but podcasts, often by the same authors, are bite-sized and let you absorb it all your way. ADHDessentials.com/podcast/ created especially for parents and hosted by Brendan Mahan, a coach and therapist who specializes in the unique area of executive function. The episodes explain how to reduce screen time, understand meds, and help your kids with homework, among many other topics. HowToADHD.com and associated blogs, also covered in this magazine, dispenses some of the best, most accessible advice anywhere in a balanced and scientifically credible format. Learn how to manage your neurodiversity along with guide Jessica McCobb as she chats with some of the top experts in the world. Dr. Hallowell's Wonderful World of Different. In 25 episodes, pioneering ADHD researcher and practitioner talks to a host of neurodiversity champions and celebrates the differences in their brains as well as the differences they are making. ADHD for Smartass Women podcast. TracyAtsuka.com/podcast-index/ from Coach Tracy Atsuka, whose book we excerpt on page 68 in this much-loved collection of chats and interviews. Atsuka teaches high-achieving women to recognize ADHD symptoms, gather their powers, and thrive. Chock full of tips and workarounds for the ambitious, the site features hundreds of podcasts on subjects ranging from changing your perspective to emotion, productivity, and family. ADHDrewired.com/podcast/ hosted by coach and therapist Eric Tivers. This is a deep archive of life strategy discussions with some of the world's most revered coaches and experts. Tivers is top of the game in helping ADHDers and those with other forms of neurodiversity tap their unique gifts and overcome barriers. It's a treasure trove of how-tos and wisdom. Apps to get you through the day. As our parting gift, here's a list of apps to help you with executive functioning: organizing, managing your time, making decisions, and keeping track of projects. AmazingMarvin.com incorporates principles from behavioral psychology to help you beat procrastination, feel in control, and finish your to-do list. Calm.com for guided meditation, relaxation, and de-stressing. Clean.email to manage your email inbox. DoApp.com so you can set reminders. FocusAtWill.com offers music to help you focus. LastPass.com, never lose a password again. And then this is just all the credits. I have finished the magazine. That took forever. I learned a lot from it. I really appreciate that my man got me this magazine. I have definitely learned some from it. And I am now going to go do my 1,000,000. I'm really glad that I finally finished this magazine. I'm setting it on his desk to let him know that it is done. And now I'm done. I'm finally done reading it. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Peace out, fam. Love.